This is Mesa Grand Duchess. This is Mesa Grand Duchess Rasmaskone, also known as Ryan Tomlinson, Mesa MPR, Mesa RKT. How are you doing on this beautiful September 25th at 5:18 p.m.? My dear, what a day so far. What a cool, chilling hump day. Where is that camel? I wish he would mount me. I am a hump that somebody needs to over. Anyway, let's not get vulgar with it. I keep looking for the the United Nations headlines and so forth, and how are we proceeding in the world today? I think all nations are tired of war and strife and so forth. But what are we doing? Do we have any new age people that are stepping up to the plate? And I need you to be wary of this. I need us to be watchful. Whatever we want from the future, whatever we want from the foreseeable future, we should start looking for it right now in leaders and so forth. We can't keep looking back at what the past is and what the past may be. We already know we should have been educated by our history and so forth and wars. We're not looking for old wounds and so forth. We're looking for newness. How do we repair damage? How do we pay reparations? How do we accept our faults and mistakes and start to reinvigorate the world with this peaceful trade and uh, the conquest of just having good communication instead of the rhetoric banter and posturing of all these peahens that need to mate. And you know what? They're not really mating. It's just about divide and conquer. We know that self-survival is the root of all nations, in the basic things of all people. But we're not looking at annihilating anyone. We shouldn't be looking at that. Instead, we should be looking at growing the hands across that unite to form the globe. At whatever cost, with every new successive government, with every new successive organization, we cannot let old barriers prevent us from forming bridges, from getting new understanding, from shedding new light. It is our recourse as leaders, as potential leaders, and as human beings, always to find out peaceful medium and outlet for peace, for new understanding. I may not understand you, your accent may be too thick for me, or maybe our cultures may be different. It doesn't mean that the next person coming along may not have a breakthrough. This is the surprise of life. And in this surprise, I'm looking for a lot of things to happen. I'm looking for a lot of old things that we're used to. We can't travel to Cuba. We have sanctions against this and that country. When are we going to allow people to come back to feeling comfortable um, with us? The freedom of nations to interact with nations, the freedom of peoples to interact with other peoples. Anyway, this is how societies were built and new societies were formed. And they were doing all these trade routes and so forth. We're not in those days anymore. But the same human need and the same human instincts persist, persist to build and bring us into newer centuries, to enlighten us into newer paths, to provide better opportunities for our citizenry, for our culture, economically, financially, and socially. No society should be isolated unless they want to. And if they choose so to do, isolated in peace, and so forth, we must respect culture because it is entire populations that bring their country into the forefront of change and adaptation to the newness of nature or to the availability, whatever nature's availability is. And in so forth, if we can handle that, if we can come to certain truths with ourselves, instead of supplanting people, disrupting societies, costing lives and freedoms and building fear, then we have turned a successive bridge in our ideals that we wish to enlighten, that we wish to share with other individuals, culture, etc. way we live now, do we want people to live like that? Do we want other countries to live the way we live? And so forth. If we're unhappy with the way we live, let's change. Let's adapt. Let's look where we can change first. We talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome and stress and so forth. I think it affects Congress, its leadership, the length of time with some of those leaders. Maybe they are afflicted also. And in that essence, it's time for us to change. Thank you for your service. Now, how can they support the new fresh faces of next door? The new fresh face of a lower middle class, plumber or lawyer or doctor or historian. It is that we need now from uh, Congress and the Senate to start supporting the ordinary citizenry to which we so proclaim to have at heart, the middle class, the poor, and start getting them into office to function and supporting their function. And when their function cannot be supported, then we lend our, when their functions are not substantiated, I mean, then we can support them with the benefit of experience and ideals and resources. Such is where we should be going. Ah, many a man had many a vision. Many a man with many a vision could never stay in the place to which they were born, to which they were live. And so they travel to other places to give vision, to enlighten, and build better societies. And we use history to criticize them. They left their home. They went somewhere else and built something greater. How offensive that must be to some of us, or upsetting also. But sometimes when we can't listen, sometimes when we can't repay what was taken and stolen, sometimes when we can't be honest, sometimes when when we are deceptive and we cannot find the peace to lend to the things that we should be peaceable about, the things that we should be honest about, and the things that our ideals should represent, when we cannot do that, then we find our society second, third, fourth, or fifth. And maybe it doesn't matter to some of us, but we have long supported freedom, integrity, credibility, the ideologies that build and made ordinary citizens become leaders. Ordinary citizens contribute in many ways in industry, finance, and whatever else in healthcare uh, to make us marketable, competitive, and so forth. And so we must move forward now. We must stop looking back at the past. We must repair it. The Germans gave enough for the Holocaust victims, etc., etc. It's not going to be a lifelong of payment, but can we move along and adapt? The Jews killed a lot of children, a lot of babies died in finding Christ. The Jews were kings of the king of Israel. And so therefore, sometimes we talk about karma and so forth. Who knows what karma will bring us? But here we are now on the brink of change, or on the brink of massive assault and revenge. It is the choice in which we make for peace, for unity, to bring societies and people back together again. This is Misa Grand Duchess. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.